Welcome to another edition of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. My next guest, Adrienne Green, and her husband and their three young children are traveling the world for like a year and a half while they're running their businesses, and they are living the dream. Guys, she's going to tell you exactly what she did to get there, and this is one of the best podcasts I've ever recorded. Please enjoy and share. So, Adrienne Green, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my honor, and I'm so excited about the value that you're going to bring our folks today. I mean, your story is absolutely incredible, and the fact that you're willing to share all your tips and tricks is super admirable. So, before we get going, can you just kind of give us a little background of where you grew up, that kind of stuff, and what got you to this point?
Sure, of course. So to start off with, I was raised in a very traditional American household with, my parents who were like W-2 employees, no entrepreneurial background or anything like that. Lived in a few different areas, actually. My father was in sales, and so we would move to different areas as he took on new sales districts. And then, I went to college at University of Southern California in LA, and I studied business administration there, expecting to go work in corporate finance and in some office situation like that. And I did that for a year. I worked for an asset manager in the LA area, and I realized that I really need to feel like I'm making a difference in people's lives. And I wasn't feeling that sitting at a computer in a cubicle all day working on Excel. I love Excel, I love numbers, and yet it was just too disconnected from that personal connection. So I went back and got my teaching credential, and I taught high school math for a number of years, and realized that I really do have a heart for being a teacher. I love teaching. I love coming alongside people and helping them realize their potential. And yet, the bureaucracy of teaching in the public school system was challenging, right? I in hindsight realized that all of my steps to more entrepreneurial paths came from a real desire for freedom, right? For time freedom, for location freedom. And so I eventually left teaching in a public school. I taught online for a bit, had a family farm, but I kind of fell into real estate investing, and that led to a career as a real estate agent, and that led to eventually having a real estate team of agents that I grew and sold, starting a virtual staffing business where my husband and I have a virtual staffing business where we help entrepreneurs get virtual assistants for their business. And so now, where I am, having had all these journeys and really gone from being very in the box to very entrepreneurial, uh, to the point where I have the time and the location freedom that I actually am traveling the world full time with my family of five. It's myself, my husband, and our three children. And while we do that, we manage our real estate investments, run this virtual staffing business, and I also have a coaching and courses business focused on helping real estate investors run their portfolios like a business.
Whew! My goodness. Oh my goodness. How cool is that that you're a real flesh and blood person who is actually doing what people think is just a dream and not really possible. So what ages are your children?
My children are 9, 7, and almost 5 years old. We've been doing travel full time for 11 months now. We have been traveling internationally for 8 months, and I am coming into this call from Hanoi, Vietnam.
Wow. It's beautiful there. I've seen pictures. I haven't actually been, but what is your favorite part about it?
Well, we just came to Hanoi this week, so it's only been a few days. So it's been really special because today, now it's evening for me here, was actually Tet, or the Lunar New Year celebration, the biggest holiday of the year here. So uh, we've been so spoiled and so fortunate on this trip. My family and I were in Manila in the Philippines for, you know, calendar year New Year's. And so we were able to see all of the fireworks and the celebration across the city of Manila. And then now we get to be in Hanoi, and same thing at midnight last night as it came into the new year. all over the city. We're in like an 11th floor condo Airbnb, and all over the city there were fireworks going off, and it was just really special. And then today we were able to go walk around the city and see everybody like visiting the temples and in their holiday beautiful dresses, and it's just been really cool to be here and to see this special holiday. Uh, and just experience that, and for my kids to experience that is just it's really something that brings me a lot of joy.
You know what? That's what's hitting me so hard right now is I I look back at my own childhood memories and I cannot imagine what your kids will be like when they're 30 years old looking back and saying, "Wow, mom and dad, thank you." Because this is not normal. This is not average, but I wouldn't say it's not normal. I guess I should take that back. It's not average. So let's back all the way up and kind of dig into how can someone else who's watching this going, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could take my kids even on one trip a year," to I'm traveling the all the time, I'm running my businesses, they're making money, and so this is passive income. This is so exciting. Oh my god. Okay, so you started off as an investor, as a real estate investor. You didn't start off as a realtor. So tell us a little bit about that. What started that?
Yes. And so what happened is my husband and I were very diligent about being good stewards of our finances to start off, right? This is what allowed us to start off with the investing, in the sense of we budgeted and we tracked our numbers. And part of this was out of necessity because when we came out of college, we actually met in college and married within 6 months of him graduating, actually. And we had student loans. And so we had to be very diligent about tracking our finances and paying off those student loans. And we really were careful to want to pay them off as quickly as possible. And so that necessity, so many, inventions are born out of necessity, right? That necessity of having that kind of tough financial situation prompted us to build good habits and discipline. And so once those student loans were paid off, we were saving all the money that we had spent on the student loans, and we already knew how to budget, how to, not just buy every little thing. And so we were able to buy, a starter home, and then just a couple years later bought what we thought was going to be our forever home. And so we buy this, 5-bedroom house. It's the two of us. Yes, we wanted kids eventually, but they weren't there yet. So it was the two of us and our dogs. And after a few months, I realized we weren't using the basement. And a couple of my husband's coworkers, they had like rented out, houses when they moved on to another one. So I was aware of this idea of real estate investing. I didn't have any in my own family, any investors. But I was like, you know what? We don't have to buy a different property. We don't have all this like expense or risk. We could just kind of do a little fixes to our basement and rent it out. We can even just put the listing up and see what happens. See if we get people that would be comfortable with being down there. And that's how it started. It really just started with like, hey, let's just test it. And so ended up renting out the basement. That went fabulously. It was the easiest money that I had made. And so I was like, this is something special. This is passive income. It's tax advantaged. This is really magical, right? And so then we progressed to saving up for down payments and buying properties solely as investment properties. And, there was a lot of challenges that went into that, of course, figuring out where the numbers worked, what would work for us. And I eventually became a real estate agent. Honestly, again, I didn't have a great plan. I thought I'm doing this because we thought we missed out on a deal because of the agent we were working with. And so I was like, you know what? We don't want to have that happen again. I'll get my license. Well, I love to help people. I have a teacher's heart. And so that quickly became that I was going to be a real estate agent helping others at the same time. And so that's what I did. And it just kept snowballing from there.
Gosh, okay. So you're doing your own investment, and it's so funny because I have a dear friend, Joel Rico. Shout out to you, buddy. Exact same story, and well, not exact, but very similar. Is he would write out the purchase agreement for this agent. He would say, "Look, just submit this. I just need somebody to do it." And finally, he's like, "This is ridiculous. I can't find someone." So he became one, and it snowballed from there for him too. So so you you didn't feel like you had good representation from your realtor, so you decided to become a realtor. You had no idea. You thought you were becoming a realtor mostly to do your own transactions.
Yes. And then like I didn't realize honestly the amount of work and cost and everything that went into being a real estate agent. I didn't have any real estate agents, close friends or family members or anything like that. I didn't really have a way to peek behind the curtain, and I could have done some more due diligence, and yet it felt like the right thing. So I went forward with it anyway. And, we lived in Northern Virginia at the time outside DC, and I was a real estate agent for mostly people buying primary residences, because it's not a great market for real estate investing, right? It's tough to find something that'll be in the black or, not cash flow negative. And so I worked with a lot of people doing primary residences, a few investors. And then in 2020, with all of, the chaos that happened in our world in 2020, my husband and I decided that it was time for us to move. I actually had my third child in March of 2020, just at the start of the pandemic. And yeah, so with the newborn and everything that 2020 had, we decided that it was time for us to move from Northern Virginia. But again, it felt right at the time. And we settled on Chattanooga, Tennessee, because it was the city that we would want to live in with a family. It was big enough to have things to do, and yet small enough that you weren't going to be stuck in traffic getting to those things. And then the other aspect was it was great for real estate investing, obviously a primary focus for me. And as I looked to that transition, in Northern Virginia, I had a friend who was a coach and who had become my coach at the time. And she was, sad to see me go. And I remember her saying, I'm going to miss you. I'm sad that you're moving out of this area. And yet, the best gift I can give you is let's sit down and let's plan out what your business is going to be like when you transition to a new market. For those of you who aren't in real estate, you know that so much of a business in real estate traditionally is your sphere of influence, the people the people you went to high school with, right? The person who changes or rotates your tires or does your oil change, right? Your kids' doctors. That's so much of your business in real estate. And I was going to a new market where I knew one person, and that person was a real estate agent, so she wasn't going to be my client. And so, working with my friend who was a coach, we worked through what was my competitive advantage, what could make me stand out in that market, and it was my real estate investing, right? My expertise, my niche, my personal experience there. And so we used like the Story Brand framework and some other resources, and really developed a path to how I could come into this new market where I knew nobody and succeed with the business. And that was really targeting that specific niche of real estate investors. And, these real estate investors weren't going to live in Chattanooga. They were going to be long distance investors from other markets that weren't good real estate investing markets. And that's what I could speak to. I'd lived in Southern California, right? I had lived in Washington State. I could talk to the people who lived in Seattle where prices were out of control, right? I had lived in Northern Virginia. So that whole DC metro area, I could speak to those people and relate to them. And I could meet their needs with real estate in Chattanooga. And so that was the business that I developed with my coach friend. 2022 January, I have my licenses, I launch it. Second big part of that, besides the coach plan, was leveraging a virtual assistant, right? Running my real estate team like a business. February of 2022, I bring on a full-time virtual assistant. I'd had one closing so far, so it was a bit of a leap of faith to be like, I know this plan is going to work. I did it, and it did work, right? With that virtual assistant doing the bottom 80% tasks, letting me focus on the top 20%, and really niching down to real estate investors. By August, I had more business that I could handle, even with a virtual assistant. And I was going into my brokerage and speaking to the leadership and saying, I think I need to start a team, because even with a virtual assistant, I am running around 18 plus hours a day. So that was that big transition to then having a business, running a real estate team, and really being a business owner rather than just a solo agent.
Wow. So all of this happened because of something that you said earlier, and you didn't say it this way, but I have heard that the number one indicator of future success is someone who uses delayed gratification.
Yes, I would believe that.
You and your husband, you saved, you paid off that. Most people are like, I'm going to make the minimum payment for as long as it's going to take, and I don't care about the fact that I have that debt. Guys, I hope you're listening between the lines here. Please understand the value of what you're being told today. This is so, so powerful. You guys, you said, no, I'm not going to buy the nice shirt that I really want. I can get this other one. And what were tell me some of the things that you did to pinch and crimp and save to have the life you have now?
Great question. So, some of the things is, you know, coming out of college, a lot of people go out and party, right? Especially Southern California, LA area. Our friends would want to get together and go to bars or something like that. And so one of the things we did is we're like, we're not buying alcohol out. It's really expensive. Like we maybe would have a drink at home, but when we went out, we were not buying alcoholic beverages. Um, Another thing is if we were going to go out at all, like to a restaurant or a date night or something, we would use, I think it was restaurant.com, would give you like gift certificates, right? For like $5, you could get $20 worth of credit or things like that. And so we would do that when we did go out. And so those were a couple things. We also, rather than, we'd had two cars. And what we did is we sold one of those cars. And then my husband actually got like a scooter because he only had to go like a mile and a half to work or something. And so he got like a little scooter moped type thing, and he would take that to work. And then we had one car for me to get to my work, and then for us to do joint things in our free time. So those were, I think, three of the big cuts. And then in terms of income, in addition to having our full time jobs, we both also worked side gigs. So I did tutoring, like I did SAT tutoring. And then once I was a teacher, I also did math tutoring in evenings and weekends. And my husband, whose background is computer engineering, did the same thing. He had his full time engineering job, and then he also would do tutoring for engineering students on the side as well.
Oh my gosh, you are so beautiful. Thank you so much for being so real and so authentic and so vulnerable. Guys, how many of you, honest to God, when you heard that story, thought, what man would do that? What man would say, okay, I'm going to ride a scooter like a little kid to work instead of have a car? But, but how many men today are living the life that your husband is living because he was willing to make those sacrifices? So how important is that? To make the sacrifices, to not have the gratification right now, to not keep up with the Joneses.
It's huge. It's huge. I think you have to make that decision, and it speaks to, I think, the duality of most pivotal moments or choices, in that part of it is that mental choice, right? That mental emotional choice of making that difficult decision and being out of your comfort zone, right? Out of the norm. And then the second part is the logistics. Okay, now that I've made the decision, how am I going to do it? And most people, they kind of get hung up on that second part of the logistics. So I don't know how to do it. And they don't face the issue that that's just an excuse. They really need to make the decision to do it. And when you've got that decision and that motivation, you will find a way.
Absolutely. And a little off of the train I was on, but how important is it to believe your success before you actually have it?
Oh my goodness. It's like we're on the same wavelength, you and I. We share the same brain right now because, when I went to go sell my real estate team, that was, I think, the most important thing to my success. So I decided that I was going to sell my real estate team at the end of August in 2023. And as you know, not many people sell their real estate teams. It's a pretty rare thing to accomplish, right? And I knew that. I knew that I really don't know that I knew anyone personally who'd ever succeeded at it. And yet I was like, you know what? I'm going to believe 100% because I felt that this was what I was being called to do. And so I was like, I'm going to believe it 100%. This is going to happen. And I wrote out a vision of how it would happen, what it would look like, what the timeline would be. And I believed 100% in it. And I ended up selling the team at the end of October in 2023. So just over 2 months later, I was signing the paperwork, selling the team. And that was much faster than I had envisioned. So, yes, believing it 100%, not being doubtful, and just knowing that that is what's going to happen in your whole being can make a huge, huge difference.
Gosh, that is so powerful. Guys, if you're not loving this and sharing this with your friends already, you're stopping us and pausing us and sharing it. You're nuts because this is the real deal. This lady and her family, she is taking her kids, and her husband are getting to show them the entire world. They're in Vietnam right now. I mean, this is the deal. Okay, so you sold the team. You the and then you started the virtual staffing company, or was that?
So we started the virtual staffing company. My husband actually spearheaded it while I was running the real estate team because we saw how powerful having a virtual assistant was for my business as a solo agent. And then when I started the team, it was only ever real estate agents and virtual assistants. To be honest, any attempt I ever made to hire in person, like staff or admin help, failed miserably. I had much greater success hiring virtual assistants. And so, my husband saw how it really 10x the business, how it was like that leverage multiplier, force multiplier. And so he would be on like, local business Facebook pages and, like, business owners of Chattanooga. And he'd see people posting that they needed admin help or things like this. And he's like, why don't they just hire a virtual assistant? But the truth is, most people don't know how to, they don't understand how it'll work. And even if they've decided that they're going to do it, like, there are pitfalls along the way, right? It's hiring even locally can be challenging. And then you put the person on the other side of the world, and it's more work to figure it out and succeed. So that's what he had the genius idea to start this virtual staffing company to help bridge that gap, to take the entrepreneurs who needed to leverage with an employee, to hire someone out, and to make it more affordable and to get them higher quality people by making it easier for them to hire virtual assistants, to help bridge that knowledge gap that's in there so that every entrepreneur can take advantage of virtual assistants, not just the ones who got the extra time or knowledge or connection to make it work.
Yes, and guys, I've never met this lady before. You would think that she's paying me. I know it sounds that way, but this is our first time to ever meet. I have a virtual assistant that I've had for a full time for 4 years, 3 or 4 years,
Amazing.
and she's become a part of my life. She's part of my family. I count on her completely. She knows me. She handles things. I, it is at the beginning. It was. It was tenuous, getting to understand each other's cultures and getting to know each other. But that's no different from anyone I've ever hired. It takes a little while to get to know someone. And the really, I think, I don't know if you'll agree or not, owning a company virtual, but I think the thing that most people don't think about, the beauty of it is, I'm not having to put an ad in the paper and interview 50 people, and then a month later, after I've spent a month training this person, they leave for whatever reason. I'm not saying that can't happen, but I'm not the one who has to go out and hire and train and do all that again. Is that one of the most beautiful parts of it?
Oh my gosh. That definitely is. That definitely is. You are speaking as somebody who I know has felt the pain of of hiring, right? Of managing that. And it is not trivial. And so yes, we like to say, and I think we have the data to prove that we are more successful because it's what we do full time, right? Like I have a director of recruiting that it like we use exclusively Filipino virtual assistants. I have a director of recruiting who is Filipina. She lives in the Philippines. Like that is what she knows, and she obviously can speak to people at a different level than an American who has no experience of the Filipino culture, calling and speaking to that person and trying to vet them from America. Obviously, somebody who lives and breathes and knows that culture, they're going to be better at telling if that person is lying in the interview. They're going to be better at really sussing out the truth, right? At calling and verifying references. It's just going to be a whole lot easier because we have a system in place that really is integrated in that culture.
And my assistant is in the Philippines, and I just want to say something about that, guys. Their lives, you are paying a lot less than you would for an American virtual assistant, and their lives are so enhanced by this job. They can be so picky. The company that I'm working with that does that, they can be so picky. They only take about the top 1% of educated Filipinos to even consider their application to be hired. So you're getting the very best of the best at a much better price, and their life is enhanced incredibly because of it. Right? I mean, pay, what would you say the pay is versus if they just got a job there?
Double or triple what they would get. if they work locally in the Philippines, or if not more, and they get the convenience of working from home. I mean, we have so, I was just in the Philippines for a month, and we had two different company parties where we met up with virtual assistants. And we have so many who were able to buy cars for the first time. One of our employees, her husband is able to be a stay at home parent to their youngest son, one of three children, and they were able to buy a car last year because of her income. Like, it is transformational for them. My executive assistant, the Philippines is a series of islands, right? He came to our company party, and it was his first time ever going on an airplane flight. Like, that's the kind of opportunity that people are getting by working as virtual assistants. And I love that you brought that up, because so often Americans worry, I think, that they're taking advantage of people overseas, or that it's not fair. And it is a win-win. And you can, I think, everybody who's working with a virtual assistant can, like, give yourself a little pat on the back, because you are really giving those people a life changing opportunity.
Amen. I couldn't agree more. And the other thing to think about is, in my case, my virtual assistant was working before she was a virtual assistant, and the working conditions were not at all as enjoyable as her working conditions now. As that's, I'll just leave it at that. So that that's the thing, is we just make these assumptions, and you can't make assumptions. You need to actually investigate. And then you look at someone like yourself who does this for a living, and you're like, she seems like a really nice lady. She's got her kids. She's traveling all over. I don't think she would be someone who would do anything nefarious, but you never know. You never know
Right.
about people.
Right. I
So
say, yes, having that core value of win win is something that guides me. And I think a lot of people, and something I look for in others as well.
it's so important. You cannot win if someone else is losing for long. It's the way it goes. So you talked about R&D earlier when we talked rip off and distribute and duplicate. Sorry. In what ways have you used that for your staffing company?
I love when I learned R&D in the real estate world, because I am really great at seeing what someone else does and then duplicating it for myself. That really, I think that I'm not unique in this, right? When we see someone else doing something, it makes it real. It makes it something that we can then put on our list as something we can accomplish. And so, honestly, one of the areas where it was transformational for me was the idea of virtual assistants. So, to take you back a little further in that, my husband read the book The 4 Hour Work Week, and he's like, oh my goodness, we could use a virtual assistant, it could be amazing. And I scoffed. I may have actually just laughed out loud and was like, I don't think that would work. No. And then, and I will eat crow, I was totally wrong, because then I went in when I was still in Northern Virginia for a period of time before I relocated from there. I was on a real estate team, and this real estate team really opened my eyes in several ways, and really allowed me to kind of use the R&D thing. One of the ways was that they used virtual assistants, and I was able to see this, and I was able to see how they did it, right? Virtual assistants answered the phone, and they actually, and this is something I totally duplicated on my own team, they had a make an offer form that, in their case, they had the real estate agent fill it out, like an online form, a Google form, or something like that. And that form went to the virtual assistants, and the virtual assistants prepped the offer. So that way, when real estate agents were out and about in the field, touring houses, they could easily just put in the details. The virtual assistant could prep the offer, and then the real estate agent could just go in, double check everything, and send it for signature. And so, seeing things like that, seeing how they use virtual assistants, made me realize my husband was right. And when I started my own, real estate business in Chattanooga, I brought in virtual assistants.
It is life changing. It really is. And you, when you figure out, all of you entrepreneurs out there, when you figure out how much you make an hour, really, really, I want you to think about this. And we're just going to use ridiculous numbers so no one can get offended. And let's say that you're making $10 an hour, and you can pay someone $5 an hour to do something. Pay them the $5. You do the $10 an hour work. That is the key, is leverage other people. And it sounds almost like you're using other people. You're giving them an incredible opportunity. So keep that up. Um, So you do coaching for investors. So if someone wants to be able to travel the world with their kids and homeschool them, and have properties that are making money in Chattanooga or anywhere else in the world, they talk to you. Tell us a little bit about how that would look.
Well, real estate investors, and I think entrepreneurs in general, you get in with this idea of freedom and then you realize, oh, wow, I just gave myself another job, right? Maybe I went from a W 2, I thought I was going to have more freedom, but I just have another job, right? Maybe I get to do it from home instead of an office, but it's still a job. And that's what I felt like when I started my real estate investing, right? That we were doing this and we did get some passive income, and yet it wasn't as much as I was really hoping. And there was work involved, especially when we transitioned to short term rentals. I had long term rentals and then ended up buying a short term rental, and there's a lot more management that goes into it. There's a lot more, you know, or coordinating cleaners, handling guests. And I was like, well, wait, I need to get this better organized because this is now another job. It's not passive income. And so that's when I started figuring out and realizing how can we use technology, how can we use systems so that I'm not reinventing the wheel, right? If I have to do something once a year, well, I've got a procedure and a bullet list. So I just crank through it because I can reference that and I haven't just forgotten everything from a year ago when I did it. So I really have evolved. And this process, I bought my first short term rental in 2019. So this has been a process really since fall 2019 of getting things organized in a system, in using leverage and technology and other people. And then in speaking to other investors and to my friends in the real estate space, they were like, oh, wow, you are doing this that other people aren't. And so I realized that, wow, I'm doing something that other people aren't. Maybe I can help other people do it. So that's where, since I sold my real estate team, I've built out and I have an online course right now that's self-paced. If a real estate investor doesn't really have the income to support my virtual staffing business and paying for all of that help, this is a course that walks real estate investors through how to hire, onboard, and then lead a virtual assistant to help manage their real estate investing business. And then I also have one-on-one coaching where we can really tailor to whatever an investor needs to really get their real estate investing running like a business so they get that time and financial freedom that were probably their motivation for doing it in the first place.
I love this. I love this. So you have an online course that's self-paced and it's affordable for anyone to be able to, come on, guys. On one transaction, you're going to make 100 times, 1,000 times, whatever probably this online course price is. Um, or you're going to get into that course and you're going to say, you know what, I think I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go ahead and get the one-on-one. And right here, without this is you and I talking in front of all these people. It's not live, but it is you and I talking, and I won't cut this. I'm thinking that maybe there should be something in the middle of these two, something
Mm-hmm.
like where you do a webinar maybe, and if you're open to doing some kind of a webinar where it's not the price of one-on-one coaching because you'll have however many people in there. Um, would you be willing to do something like that?
That is the goal eventually, to have some sort of group option that gives people that opportunity to ask questions and some more support, and yet is going to be at a more approachable price point. That's the plan. I'm just waiting until I'm in a time zone that's not 12 hours off from the US.
That does make a big difference. Yes. Okay. Okay, cool. So guys, if you're interested in that and you think that you would you're just not quite, that the online course you really want a little bit more hand holding than that. But one-on-one seems a little too like, oh gosh, that's way too much of a commitment, then maybe this would be something that would work for you. So leave some comments on YouTube. I know you're probably listening to this on Spotify or somewhere else, but leave the comments on YouTube and either one of us can respond to your comments. And I bet you if there's enough demand for it, it will be created fairly soon. Look at that
Definitely.
smile. Yes. But stay on your trip as long as you can. How long are you going to be 12 hours different from us?
uh, Through beginning of June. So a few
Oh
more
my
months and
gosh.
it'll be here before we know it. Yeah.
Wow. So you're going to be a year and a half traveling the world with your family.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. That is so incredible. And and you did it because you appreciated delayed gratification. You said, "No, I'm going to wait. I'm going to do this and I'm going to wait." and it paid off. And so, what is your life like now? Now I know that you could go out and buy any outfit that you want. You could go to any restaurant that you want. Do you do that?
No, in fact, part of the benefit and one of the things we love about traveling internationally is that honestly, it costs us less money than living in the United States did. So I would say that, our world travels are in some way, now obviously there are a lot of other reasons we do it, but in some way, an extension of our desire to be good stewards of our wealth and to make our money work for us. So, yeah, no, we I think are pretty mindful, and we actually do things like home exchange. So our short-term rentals we have listed on this website, homeexchange.com, where in the off season, people can stay there and we get points and then we can use those points and go stay in other people's homes. So we actually do a home exchange and things like that to continue to, again, not spend more money than we have to, because that gives us more to invest and continue growing our wealth and gives us more opportunities further down the road.
Very cool. Was one of the funnest things that you've ever done for someone else?
Ooh, one of the funnest things I've ever done for someone else. I think these parties that we just did were pretty fun. So my virtual staffing company, Workergenics, we just threw these two employee appreciation parties. We had one in Manila, in the Philippines, and one in Cebu. We had two different locations so that it was easier for people to get there, right? People who could go to one, people go to another. Because again, you're dealing with an island nation, but we had these really nice parties, right? And in these beautiful hotels with this like really premium food. And this is something that, I mean, I thought it was really fancy as an American. I went in and I was like, oh my goodness, this is really nice. Imagine what it was like for people who don't have the same opportunity that I've had so far in my life. And so having these parties and being able to give this to the employees was something really special. And I didn't even like realize, I think, until like the second party, just how special it was, because all of our virtual assistants, many of them brought us gifts, really nice gifts that they brought. And I was like, why are they giving us gifts? Like, we're giving them this party, we're saying thank you to them. And I realized that this was such a big gift to them. This party was such a big gift that they felt that they needed to reciprocate in some way. And it was just really special. Like to get together with them, to give them this great experience that was probably, a once in a lifetime thing for them, or until we go back and do it again.
Well, yeah, and it also showed them what's possible. And that's really all it takes because, like, you believed that you were going to sell your team. You had that belief, and that's what happened. When they see that, they didn't even know a lot of it existed. And I can speak from experience. I grew up in severe poverty. And when you don't even know, you just you don't even have anything to attain to. So those parties changed not just their lives, but their families' lives who got to come. So good for you. Good for you. Oh, I'm having a great time. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have?
This has been a great conversation. I think that we've talked about a lot of things that hopefully will help everyone who's listening.
Right. That is the goal. Okay. So one of the questions that I ask everyone is, your mental diet has to be pretty amazing to be who you are today. What are some books or podcasts or what do you recommend for our people's mental diet?
Well, the first thing I would say is being intentional about it. So I would say years ago, if there was anything in popular media that wasn't going to be uplifting or helpful or educational, it was cut, right? When people talk about watching things like Game of Thrones, I'm like, no, no. Anything that's going to be violent or negative like that, that's gone. And while that may be, unpleasant music, anything like that, it's all gone. And that may be weird at first, and yet I will tell you that again, as an example of it is totally possible, and it's fine, and you're not missing out from society. So first, I would say getting rid of all the junk goes a big way. And then I would say what I love to read are, different biographies, history, and different personal development books. The Miracle Morning is something that's been it's such a little thing. It's like the first domino that makes so many things fall in place. So if anybody was going to read just one book from this call, I would say read The Miracle Morning and start putting into place a miracle morning routine with the savers for yourself. Don't focus on it being, super long. See what you could do in 10 to 15 minutes a day, and that alone will make a big difference.
It, amen. Yes, 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 yes. Hal Elrod is an amazing man, and that Miracle Morning absolutely changed my life years ago. But I still attest to it today. Okay, and then the last question, because you are on Think Your Way to an Epic Life, is what can you tell our folks to help them think their way to their own epic life?
I think what I would say to think your way to an epic life is, and I'm going to reference another book here, is The Gap and the Gain. Right? The gap and the gain, and the idea of those two mentalities that you can view the same situation either from a gap mindset and say what isn't great about it, or for a gain mindset, like the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. And we are so explicit, like myself and in my family, about making that choice that even my children, my 9-year-old daughter, if I say something where I am critical of something, she'll say, "It sounds like you're in a gap mindset right now." All right. It is a part of our household verbatim or vocabulary that we use this framework and we talk about it openly. And so I'd say reading that book, understanding that mentality, and really being intentional and telling the people in your world about it so that you can all hold each other accountable to being in a gain mentality rather than a gap mentality.
I love it. I'm going to get it right away. I would recommend The Big Leap for you as well. If you haven't read it, you'll love it. It because we seem to just be right there this whole time. It's been very fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of your information, guys. Please take this seriously and put a comment in there if you want to see a webinar with our new friend. Thank you, Adrienne. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.